What's up everybody, this is Ben, and today I'm going to do an advanced MC-101 tutorial. And now if you're a beginner, if the beginner lessons have been helping you out, super glad. I'm going to try to make this accessible enough that you can at least understand sort of what's going on, maybe get some ideas, maybe get some inspiration, but it is going to move just a little bit faster. I'll be back with more beginner tutorials soon, but I think this is a concept that I really want to talk about, and I don't think it's really a beginner concept, even though I think it can be useful to see it in action, even for beginners. So hopefully this video has something in it for everyone at all levels, and thanks for sticking with me. With that said, today we're going to talk about what I think is an important topic with the MC-101, and that is sound design. Now, you've probably seen some people on the internet say that you can't do sound design on the 101. And while compared to the MC-707, there's a lot of synth parameters that you can't access in here, that doesn't mean that you can't do sound design on it. That said, there's nothing wrong with romplers or preset player types of devices. I think some of us can remember how Nexus, which is a VST that was basically just a preset player, dominated music for a decade, and most people used Massive that way, and even like Omnisphere is largely used that way. So I think there's something to be, I don't know, I don't necessarily get the dislike of things that are just preset players, but I don't think this needs to just be that. And so to demonstrate that, I'm just going to go through this little track that I made and talk about the sound design that's involved in it. So to start, I'm just going to play it. Okay, you get the idea. It's just a little loop, really just to demonstrate this stuff. I think it sounds okay. Is it great? Depends. But I think it's pretty okay. So we're just going to go through track by track, and we're going to see what's going on. And the first thing to notice, you can tell by this little T here, that there are 4 tone tracks. There's no drum track in this. It's only tones. And the other thing that I think you should notice is that each one is only the init tone, which was sort of the point. My goal here was to make some sort of track that only used the init tone. So just to refresh everyone's memory what the init tone sounds like, I'm going to make a new clip here. Whoops. I'm going to make a new clip here, and this is, that's the init tone. If you're a sound design person, sounds a lot like a sawtooth wave, and I think that that's because it is a sawtooth wave. So what can we do with that? So the first thing is we have some settings here. We can give it delay. Alright, not bad. Reverb. Decent sounding reverb. We have tuning options. Portamento, which we can, stuff like that. We have a filter. It doesn't sound too bad. So if you're familiar with typical East Coast subtractive synthesis, you need really a sawtooth oscillator and a filter, and you can do quite a lot of things with that. Beyond that, we have attack, decay, release, envelope, amp envelope settings. So you can, attack, you can fade stuff in. Decay, there's no sustain level, so you're a little bit limited in what decay can do, but then release does what you sort of expect. Gives it some tail. So I like some I really like plucky, like modern plucky sorts of sounds, so that sort of thing's actually pretty easy to do. with some appropriate settings of the filter and stuff. And then there's vibrato. Which you can use for some pretty nice effects. You even have not an envelope, but a delay parameter to delay the onset of the vibrato. You have just a switch for unison, which I actually like a lot, especially for these like plucky sorts of sounds. That's a really like common sort of modern chord lead type of sound that I happen to like a lot. And then you have these system control things, and I like if you put on just like a little bit, you can get sort of like an analog type of feel. So the first one's like a vibrato. I'm going to take off unison for this just to show you. The first one is like a vibrato. Turn it back off. System control 2. Like a tremolo sort of thing. 3 is, I'll be honest, I'm not exactly sure. There's some sort of like phase thing happening. And then 4 is like an auto pan type of thing, which can be a little bit disorienting, but if you put on like unison, say, and a little bit of that, and a little bit of that one. Right? And then even a little, you can change your vibrato rate, maybe a little vibrato delay, and then throw on a little attack. And you can get some nice little pads right out of the init patch. Now, most of these, pretty much all these settings, with the exception of sometimes the sys control things do something a little bit different depending on what the preset is, but most of these you can do this with any preset. So this is just with the initial preset. And I didn't even, throw some reverb on here. You're starting to have something real nice sounding, and then even maybe we can throw on some delay. I'm just playing at this point. This wasn't part of my planned video. And you got some pretty nice sounding like synth strings and stuff already going on here. I think that's really cool. So, with that said, we are going to go back through the track. And so here's what the track sounds like one more time. And we're just going to look at what is going on each track. So, we're going to start with track 4, and track 4 just sounds like this. Great. So this track 4 is pretty simple. We have oh, I didn't even mention. So this is before we get to any of the multi effects. So there's 90. This is back to the track 2 clip 9, which is what I was just playing with. This one. So there's multi effects, which there are 90 effects, and there are, so if you watched the review videos that came out that when the MC-101 first came out, they're all like, well, we'll take Roland's word for it, there must be 90, there's far too many to go through. But if you really take the time to learn this box, it's really not so overwhelming, this 90 effect sort of thing. There's only a few different categories that they cover a lot of bases, but there's equalizers, types of settings like the low boost isolator, stuff like that. Filters. There's some funkier ones, like this enhancer does some sort of like compression and some EQing on it that makes things usually sound pretty good. There's some weird ones. You got Auto Y and Humanizer, which are kind of weird stuff, and we'll get into that a little bit later. A lot of speaker simulators, amp simulators to like give some flavor to the sound that you're looking for. So I can just play a little thing so you can, that, you know, just gives a little bit more modulation. There's a lot of different phasers. It can give you some pretty neat stuff. Ring modulation we'll talk about in a little bit. Rhythmic effects like that, types of things. I really like the rotary emulation, which like moves stuff around, like emulating sort of like a Leslie speaker, so like some organ patches that can give it a lot of life. So a lot of choruses, which can give you some more motion on stuff. These are classic emulations like choruses and phasers and stuff. And then flangers, similar types of ideas. And then overdrives and distortions, which can be pretty aggressive or a little bit lighter. Saturators. All of these have a lot of parameters that you can edit to really dial in the sort of sound that you want out of it. And then there's a couple compressors and stuff, those sorts of effects. There's a lot of different types of delays, and so these can be in addition to the delay send, that is like sort of a master effect, and they can really give you some like rhythmic elements and stuff like that. Some weird ones, which can be pretty interesting. This is little like looper types of things, and then these like lo-fi types of effects. The pitch shifter can also be rhythmic. You can change how that stuff goes, which can add sort of like an arpeggiated chord over what you're doing. And then there's all these that are combinations of them. And sometimes if I don't really know what I want, I'll just go like scroll through these and see what sounds good. You know, this is a like overdrive distortion into like wah, distortion into flanger. They can just get crazy. Guitar amp into flanger, electric piano amp into chorus. You can get a lot of wild stuff out of this. And you can always, like, you can pick something, you forget what your sound sounded like, you can switch to sort of A-B what's really going on. So there's a lot of possibility within that. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. So let's, now we can go back to the song, which again goes like this. So it's kind of a nice line. So really it's pretty simple, right? This one, we have a delay, reverb on it, nothing too crazy. The filter is engaged, and there's unison on it, and it's actually slightly detuned from the rest of the track. And let's see what we have on the multi-effects. We have a EP into chorus. So without the multi-effects, it would sound like. So yeah, that really gives it some character, that like amp simulator, and then the chorus helps just like beef it up a little bit. And then, then it's just some chords and the delay to give it that like rhythmic feel, like almost like I don't know. To me, it serves sort of the same purpose in the track as like an arpeggiator would, or like, you know, like a little like plucky like arp. So that's that track. We're gonna go move on to track 3. this nice big like chord sound that I like, and this is super simple. It's just there's reverb on it. Then the filter is engaged, and it has unison on. And then the multi-effects is a rotary simulator. I turned it off. So this VK rotary is some like emulation of a particular speaker, so it has some like EQ and stuff and compression to like mimic that I think gives it like a nice flavor. But you can hear that there's some motion going on, so this has a motion sequencer in it, and you can tell it what to do. You can motion sequence or parameter lock or automate any of these 4 knobs. The way that you do it is you hit Shift Motion, scroll over to Motion Designer, give it the shape that you want. You have a few to choose from, and pick the step length over which that shape will repeat, give it minimum and maximum values, and then tell it what knob you want to go to, and then hit execute. So in this case, and then you can look at the values that it gives you and change the values that it gives you, or just put in your own values by selecting a step, holding shift, and turning a knob. And you see this step, sound has no modulation, mod has no modulation, FX has no modulation, filter does. So I'm going to choose this step because filter happens to be 0 there, and then turn the knob, and that brings up the each yellow spot shows you that there's modulation there for the filter track, because that's the one that we're on, because you can see that it's flashing there. You can change which one is flashing by hitting the buttons like that. So if I check this step, we see the filter is 0 here. Filter set to 0. This step, filter set to 10. This step, filter set to 20. This step, filter set to 30. So this is basically like a saw between 0 and 30. And it goes like that. And if I wanted, I could just change any of these wherever I wanted to, which is pretty neat. So that's what gives this particular track its like motion. As we're modulating the filter knob, which in this case is the cutoff. So these can be assigned however you want. But for right now, this is the cutoff, and this is what's making this track sound like this. So together, pretty neat. Now we're going to move on to track 2, the bass line. And so this uses one of my favorite effects on here. So it is the Humanizer effect. So the track sounds like, which is a pretty nice, like, digital, dirty sounding bass for something that started off as we're imitating an analog subtractive synth with just a sawtooth wave. So I'm just going to talk about the Humanizer for a minute, and to do that, I'm going to make another new clip here. We're going to go like this, create new clip, awesome, and we have the init tone. That's harsh, going to turn the filter down. I'm just going to like put a tone in here so we have something to listen to, and bring that up to some drone. Great. Okay, so multi-effects type. We're going to come over to Humanizer. So what the Humanizer is it's a formant filter that has formant settings for all the different vowels. And you have a bunch of parameters that you can adjust with it. Whoops. I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. I always get it back. So you hear. So what we're doing is going from U, the U shape, to the A shape. and we're doing it every half a second or so. So you can sync this to the rate, which I usually do because it helps like get like a clear picture of the rhythmic things that are happening. But you can set it to not to just do based on a frequency, an absolute frequency, so you can have it like do weird interacting things that don't line up consistently with your track. So in this case, I have it synced to the rate now, and the note is half. So every time it's going back and forth between the U and the A every 4 steps. You can make this longer. Which is pretty neat. You can change the vowels. You can have it go from like stuff like this, which is pretty cool. And the other really cool thing that I like a lot is this manual setting. So this changes like the duty cycle, or the percentage that it spends in vowel 1 versus vowel 2. So if I take it all the way to one side, it'll only do vowel 1, which is the oo. And if I start to bring it up a little, it'll go to A for just like a small percentage of it. And if I bring it up here, it'll mostly be an A. Okay, so that's all well and good. And that's what I use for track 2. So there's another really cool thing you can do with this that I didn't use on this track, but I think is really fantastic, which is we can set this knob, say, to change the rate. We can set this knob to change the manual value. So if we're playing like this, we can make the rate go, or not the rate, sorry, I want this to be the rate note because we're synced. So if you're not synced, rate is just a frequency, like a few hertz, and that is not synced to anything. If rate and rate note is the musical division that you're synced to, and those are, only one is active at a time. So since rate note is the one that's active, that's what I want the knob to be. So we can go like this. And so as you go very quickly, now what's happening is it's going between oo and ah very fast. So if you change how the manual setting for how long it spends in each, you can change the tone and get a really cool That's really fun. I like that a lot. And you can modulate that if you wanted to. In fact, let's just give that a saw. 4 steps. Make it go all the way. Make it go to mod, just so you can see how this works. And we hit OK. Crazy stuff. Anyway, let's go back to what we have on track 2. So all we have here is the manual is set in the middle, and it's synced. It's not synced to rate, and we have half a hertz. And I mean, I think it sounds pretty cool through the length of the track. So it's U to E, which I think sounds pretty neat. So that's that track. Without this on, super simple, just bass, just some filter, and playing a low note. There you go. So all 3 of these tracks together. I think that sounds pretty good. So now the drum track. The drum track, it's a little bit complicated. So it's not a great drum track, I'll admit that, but it does fill its purpose as a drum track, and I think that's pretty cool, just using tones and the initial patch. So this is what it sounds like on its own. not the best kick snare pattern, not the best kick hi-hat pattern, but it is a kick snare, kick hi-hat type of pattern. And the way that it works is I'm using 5 clips and chaining them together in short amounts of time. So this one, play step length is only 4. This one, the play step length is only 1. This one, it's 7. This one, it's 1. And then the last one is 3. So the ones are snares. And then the other ones are kicks that just sort of fill in the gap. So let's see how I programmed a kick. So for the sake of this, I'm just going to set this to stay on this clip instead of moving on. And it's set to only play for four steps. So this is what it's going to sound like. And so the kind of cool thing about this, even though this is digital, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I can see in the waveform that I'm looking at, and you can hear it. It doesn't sound exactly the same every time it's played, in almost sort of like an analog type of way. So that can be a nice way to add some variety to your drum tracks, if that's something you're interested in. And I'll go through how I made it. It's pretty simple. We have a compressor on it. So without the compressor, I mean, right? It's pretty obvious. There's some filter on it. There is some. I turned the attack and decay down. The release is very short, which matters. I think the attack and decay being so low doesn't really matter. But the cutoff and resonance to get like the tone that I wanted to. And then the pitch selection is really the only parameters that I changed. And then for the compressor, I have I'll go through the settings. If you're familiar with compressors, I mean, it'll probably be pretty clear. There's a longish attack to give it some element of the transient. The threshold is very low, just squashing the crud out of it with a pretty high ratio as well, and then cranking the volume back up. So it's not a terrible sounding kick drum. And if you wanted to change the way that it sounds, you can actually just lower the length and get like a bit of a snappier kick, and then you can that sort of thing to get that like longer, like 808 type of tail. So that's the kick drum. And then I'm gonna come back to clip. This is a snare. I'm gonna again just put it on stay for now. I'll put this one back so I don't forget to later, and then it'll sound done. That's an annoying sound, I'll admit that. So classic analog drum machines, how do they make their hi-hat metal type of sounds? The answer to that is ring modulation. So there's a ring modulator on here. If I turn it off, it's almost nothing. There's reverb on it, and there's some filter, just to like give it. There's resonance to give it that like peak, and then I fiddled with the cutoff to put the peak where I wanted to. The reverb gives it some nice little like tone there, and then the ring modulator really gives it that snappy, that like metal sort of thing. And you can change this if you're interested in changing the tone. There's a few parameters that you can adjust here to get how much like noise and stuff to this that you want. You can even turn the polarity to down, get some weird percussion stuff that way. So yeah, if I change this back to clip 3 and start it back there. So you do have to be careful if you're on like this one and you have this like set of clip chaining things, you'll end up like offbeat because everything is sort of weird here. But that's okay. So we start back on one. We get the whole song, and so that is how you can do an entire song. on the Roland MC-101 with just the initial patch. Now, any of these things can apply to any of the presets, so that's a lot of flexibility. You could do all of that, turn a piano sound into a kick if you want to. You could turn, I mean, you could turn like a guitar sound into like the pad if you wanted to. You can do so much. And it's not exactly traditional synthesis, although like the track 3, like, that's pretty standard East Coast synthesis. Even track 4 is, you know, pretty normal synthesis. I mean, if you're trying to do drum synthesis, this is pretty normal drum synthesis. And then track 2 with that Humanizer, and there's like wahs and speaker sims and distortions and all stuff that you can put on this sort of thing that sort of you're almost getting into like a West Coast type of synthesis, especially with the way that you can do like the parameter locks across 4 tracks. There's a lot of flexibility here. So anyway, so my point is I see a lot of people online, and I've heard from a lot of people that say, well, Ben, I might as well just get the 707 because I want it to sound like me. I don't want it to just sound like I'm playing a preset box. I don't think this sounds like you're playing a preset box. And I think there's just a ton of flexibility in it. And you can really, really make some really interesting sounds with it. And I think that's cool as crap. And so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope this was sort of a productive experience, or at the very least give you some like inspiration to go try to do something. I think it's really cool to make a whole track from just one initial sound. And I think then hopefully this demonstrated that the 101 really can be a powerful musical tool, even to express yourself in the field of sound design. And I think that's really neat. So that's about it for this lesson. I will be back with more beginner lessons focused on the beginner end. I also have some more advanced and intermediate stuff that I would like to share with everyone. So yeah, I mean, like and subscribe for more MC-101 content, and I really hope you liked it. Hope you know, some level of inspirational, and have a good one. And I will see you in the next video.